Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, is Casey McGeorge.
Oh, how's it going, everybody?
Good. And what I mean by as always, I mean, for Agatha All Along, I confused my intro with the other intro
It'll be
for
all
films
right.
for the very first time.
It'll
Which, by the way,
good.
it's been a year today that we released the first episode of films for the very first time. So
Wow,
yeah.
definitely digging that.
So we were talking episode 3 of Agatha, Through Many Miles of Tricks and Trials, directed by Rachel Goldberg, written by Cameron Squires, and it premiered September 25th, 2024 on Disney Plus. And before we kind of get into that, wanted to talk the ratings news, right? Which was 9.4 million views for episode 1 in its first 4 days, I believe it was, or 3 days. We don't know where that stands for episode 2.
I was gonna say, is that just
Um,
episode one, or is that one and two together?
just just episode 1 is how they phrased it. Um, and I saw some people out there being a little disingenuous with it. So I saw people comparing it, and that's global views, not just the USA. Okay, but I saw people comparing it to the Acolyte Star Wars series, which was canceled. So I saw people comparing it unfavorably to it because the Acolyte premiered with 11.4 or something, right? 11.2, something like that. And people are like, well, Agatha's doing worse than that. And I wanted to just clarify that for people. The Acolyte had the greatest premiere for a Disney Plus original this year, 2024. They haven't had many, so I don't know what that really says, but that's how Disney touted it when they did that. Now, where it all went wrong for the Acolyte is two things. The ratings plummeted after the first week. It dropped out of the Nielsen top 10, and it just never ever re-entered it except for like maybe near the end, I think it was. But it was not enough. And the other issue was it just recently came out that while originally we thought The Acolyte was $180 million budget, that seems to have been in maybe the British pounds. And it actually was more like $250 million for
Jesus.
The Acolyte, which we know from like She-Hulk, which is what that was rumored to have cost. Um, that's expensive. That's expensive. And when then it immediately plummets the viewership, there's a reason that was canceled. Now,
That's
I'm
expensive
not
for a
saying
movie.
Agatha's
Never
gonna.
mind a TV show.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm not gonna say this is like great viewership for Agatha. I think it's good. The other thing is that this show was revealed to have been the cheapest of the Marvel Disney shows, and I think Echo was 40 million, so it's below $40 million for Agatha.
It looks like, other than the actual, obvious visual effects that you need for magical spells or something like that, it looks like most of it is done practically.
On sound stages. Yeah,
Like
like
kind of the same thing with WandaVision. It looked like a lot of that was done
yep.
practically. Obviously, there's some stuff that you do need CGI and visual effects and some stunt coordinators and stuff for, but most of this does look like it was done, practically and in camera instead of, we'll fix it in post and go from there.
Right. And there's got to be a way to make shows cheap again, right? Like I always go back to this. My favorite show is Lost, right? 6 seasons. It filmed in Hawaii. It had a large cast. It was an expensive show, but it wasn't like $40 million a season show, right? Like, and that was 22 episodes a season, right? So at some point they have to get these budgets more in line with like, and that looks great. Like Lost looks physically great. So there has to be a way to have like streaming series be cheap again. Like in order to make episodes and not be going totally bankrupt on streaming. You have to be able to find ways to do it. And so it sounds like Agatha is the cheapest of the Marvel shows. It doesn't look it, but we'll get into why I think it was easily cheap on this episode. And we can just kind of dive in with this. But the way that they're doing the trials, it seems, are this is how creative shows can be when the budget is limited, right? Like the trial ends up becoming like a Desperate Housewives house, right? Which like that doesn't cost a lot. That costuming that they're wearing when they're doing this trial in the house and the probably the set for the actual house, that beach house is not an expensive set. It's not like you're having to create this I don't know, like this CGI beast of a set or like creating all this alien stuff. You're taking a set that probably could have been reconfigured from another TV show and making it work into the budget. And I'm sure that for these other trials, they might end up being the same house redecorated many different ways is what I would guess. But that's a way to and then like probably when they're filming on the road, it's probably some of the same set, just shot different ways to make it disguised as being the same corridor of the road. But and it looks still great. Like it still looks physically great. So for me, I'm just very happy to say that like even if we don't get a second season, I think this is supposed to be a one-off. But like just seeing them be able to rein in the budget again is good because that's going to mean we get more shows again, or like and we get more creative shows. I think when you have to try to think of ways to disguise your budget and make things look good again. Like I don't know, like I just I feel very optimistic about it.
Yeah, I don't foresee this being more than one season unless they, depending where the show goes, unless they carry on with Agatha Harkness in some way, shape, or form. Um, but you never know what their plans are, or what may happen, or if viewership goes up or down. You like, anything is possible. So, but I always like just like WandaVision. I always figured that would be just a one-off thing. Um, I didn't realize there was Vision Quest until way later, and I was like, oh, well, he's getting his own show after White Vision flew off, so we'll see him in a few years. Okay, cool. Um, I honestly didn't expect this show until after WandaVision, when it came out that Agatha was getting her own show, and I was like, okay, cool, but that's taken a couple
And
years.
the only reason that happened is because people were really praising Catherine Hahn and in this role, and so all the people that asked like who asked for this show, they Disney definitely took a look at who the popular characters in WandaVision were, and people were loving Catherine Hahn's Agatha and the song Agatha All Along, and they said let's use that as momentum to get a spinoff. You
Yeah,
know,
so we'll go to the hellscape that is Twitter. So before this series started, there was a discussion on Twitter I saw that I didn't get involved in because uh, there's all the issues with the Blade movie, right? Where different people have come in and out, and actors and directors and writers and everything else, right? And it's been pushed a couple times, and it's probably going to get pushed again if it even gets made. Like there's rumors apparently that it may be on the chopping block, but you never know, right? And then especially after Wesley Snipes, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it, including me, but I've seen all the spoilers. Especially after there is an appearance of Blade in Deadpool and Wolverine, right? The original Blade, Wesley Snipes. And I guess,
right?
people really enjoy that. So they enjoy the character. Like, so there is a want for the character of Blade in some way, shape, or form. Added to the fact it's, I hate to go this route, but it is a black vampire, right? And it's a character that resonates more with a certain group of people. Um, and I saw there was a discussion of why are we getting Agatha All Along, because there was one silly song and we still haven't got another Blade movie, or this Blade movie is still who knows what the hell is going on with it. Some sort of valid points. I can understand that. I will admit I was never a big fan of Blade, even during the original series or the original movies that came out. Wasn't really my thing. They were okay action movies for me. Wasn't a huge Wesley Snipes fan, and then you hear about all this drama that happened during Blade Trinity, and you're like, well, yeah, well, maybe that guy doesn't need to be in these movies anymore, and maybe that character's just kind of run its course. But a small subset of that. Like I said, I'm not a big Blade fan. But I mean, there's been every time they've released a new title for this series, or there's been something that's come out, it's drummed up a ton of discussion online about the fact that people couldn't wait and were interested in this series. Like you said, Catherine Hahn did such a, fantastic job as Agatha or Agnes in the original, in WandaVision. And there was the twist of it was Agatha all along that was behind everything, and so on and so forth. And between social media and just water cooler discussion, they were found ways to get people interested in that. And I think this series has the potential to do that. Now, I think from one episode so far, or one of the 3 episodes so far, the breakout character seems to have been Rio. A lot of people are really loving Rio Vidal, Aubrey Plaza's character. And I heard there were rumors that there's a possibility of maybe her getting her own spinoff or something. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens later with the rest of this series, right? What happens with her character. But people seem to really be intrigued by her character, and it doesn't hurt that it's Aubrey Plaza, and she's an amazing actress as it is. So she can bring something to that role that other people can't. But, maybe just like we didn't get WandaVision season 2, maybe we get a Rio series from here, Further Adventures of Rio or something, instead of Agatha, instead of another season of Agatha. So
Yeah, yeah, it could be. This let's get into the episode here, episode 3. Which, oh, you know what? I don't mean which as which either. Let me pull up the synopsis for this episode. Um, yeah. Also, there was a leak from Funko on who Aubrey Plaza is really playing and who the teen is. I am not going to bring that up on this show. But if people have seen it, they know what it is.
man, you know what?
So
You're finding that a lot more often nowadays. Is that these toys and Funko Pops and various things are I don't want to say ruining movies, but they're definitely they're leaking stuff inadvertently.
yeah,
By upcoming,
and it wasn't like an official release too. Somebody in Funko, I guess, leaked it or something. So that person's probably in some trouble. Um, okay, the synopsis was: the coven faces their first perilous trial on the witch's road. And we do have to say goodbye to a character, and maybe the bodies will start piling up, Casey. I know that was your theory from the trailer, right? That all of these people are going to die, maybe except for Agatha and the teen. Um, we lose Sharon, not Mrs. Hart. Like she does not want to be called Mrs. Hart, but Mrs. Davis, Sharon Davis, ends up dying. And we get a call back to WandaVision too when she has her hallucination, right? When she's like, Wanda, like let him breathe. That's the scene from the dinner. I think in episode 3, or was that 1? It was probably episode 1 because it's the black and white episode of WandaVision where, she and her husband are over for dinner with Wanda and Vision. And Wanda kind of has this moment where the reality breaks a bit and she starts choking Mr. Hart. And this is exactly the same words that she says to Wanda. So that's her hallucination she's having. While some of these characters are having hallucinations, I feel like, of their past, hers is actually of something that didn't really happen to her. I mean, in the sense it did, because it's this kind of weird layers, right? Where she's not Mrs. Hart, but she remembers that stuff, and she was being put through this emotional rigor, I don't know, like it's very odd to um like, did that stuff actually happen to her? Yeah, I guess she experienced it, right? But it's not like her that it was supposed to happen to. It happens to Mrs. Hart, not Mrs. Davis. And it's just like this wild levels of stuff. But like most of the other characters are having flashbacks to stuff that was their real past, while hers was like this Wanda torture past that she was reliving.
Yeah. I looked up some things before we got on. I saw that. I kind of missed that when I first saw it, partially because my TV's so close where my air conditioning unit lies. And then, so like when my air conditioner kicks on, and I live in an apartment, right? So it's where my air conditioner kicks on, it gets kind of loud. So then I got to turn my TV up, but then I don't want to disturb my neighbors. So it just gets really weird. Um, so yeah, I was definitely wrong about my thoughts on Mrs. Hart, apparently, which I knew I was going to be. Like that was just not like the fact that I thought she was the one behind everything and I didn't trust her. Yeah, we saw how far that went. Um, Looking at the aspect of yeah, maybe the bodies are going to start piling up. Apparently, so we'll jump a little to a reckless speculation here. Um, so there's the four elements: earth, fire, wind, and water. Right? They needed a witch for each of these things, and so on and so forth. So, and then we had Mrs. Hart, who really wasn't a witch, and she's finding out about witches in this episode from these other women, right? Okay, cool. And there's a bunch of wine, so yeah, that sounds interesting. Um, in case we haven't spoiled it, Mrs. Hart is no longer with us, right? Uh,
Yep.
but by the end of the
Rest in
episode,
peace.
rest in peace, Kitty Foreman. There, um, she's not needed, right? And she was the one who wasn't magically inclined or a witch in any way. Uh, our potions, which I can't remember the her name.
Jenny.
Um,
Jenny.
Jenny may seem to have served her purpose, unless another trial needs potions in some way, shape, or form, right? So maybe she becomes one of the next one. Like her purpose has been served. She made potions that was able to move them on to the next phase of the witch's road. Like, I mean, I hate to say it, some of that may be kind of where you can see it coming. Like, okay, our next trial, um, whatever witch uses their power, okay, then eventually she may be the next one to go, so on and so forth. And that could be how we get the body starting to pile up. Is that eventually, like I said, every episode someone dies, but it becomes a person who really doesn't serve a purpose to their trials as they get further down the road again.
Why do we think she died? I've seen some speculation, Casey, that they give her the potion,
Mm-hmm.
but from what people who have like really watched in detail said, that they never got a piece of her hair the way that they got everybody else's hair, like but yet the timer was still going until they did give her the drink. So I do think that maybe it was just too late. Maybe it was just too late for her
So
at that point.
okay, so the little egg timer there, a little Google Echo
Yeah.
timer or whatever that was going on. I saw that, okay, and I figured, okay, they've got about 30 minutes to solve this. And then I hit up on my remote and I see there's about 20 some odd minutes of the episode left. So I'm like, okay, this is gonna go down to the wire. Outstanding. So they do everything and they make their little potion, and They drink from it and they're happy. And I'm like, you still got like I saw that part coming. I'm like, you still got Mrs. Hart. Like Mrs. Hart is still like she hasn't drank from it because she's not like she's unconscious. And then the aspect of as they try like the timer starts ticking and they're like, oh crap, we still got one more. I was like, oh, because usually in a lot of shows like this, like they get it with like 1 second to spare, or they get it just in the nick of time. And then after they go through the oven, which was a great callback there with the oven, loved the little Easter egg on that one. Uh, yeah, apparently they didn't get it in time, and I was like, oh, well, that sucks. I was just starting to get used to her. Plus, that will ruin my speculative thing on Mrs. Hart. But maybe just because she wasn't a witch and she really didn't serve a purpose to them. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe she shouldn't have been on the road, or she wasn't supposed to be on the road in the first place because, like I said, she doesn't have magical powers. She's not a witch. She's not in that group, so she shouldn't have been part of the coven. She shouldn't have been there. So yeah, she would be the one to have to go because they speculate and say that the witch's road is treacherous and you'll test everything you have and only the strongest witches will survive and all this other stuff. So I can imagine it's only going to get more dangerous from this point forward.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't have any power, she doesn't bring any magical aspects or any witchcraft to the table. Like, okay, prime example. Let's go back to our films for the very first time conversation about Xander. How Xander really wasn't during one of the episodes we watched, the Zeppo. We talked about how Xander didn't really bring much to that group at certain points. He was always getting himself in trouble. He was getting knocked out, and they were always having to go rescue and save him. And during that episode, eventually, they wanted something really bad and dangerous. The Hellmouth was going to open up again, and they realized how dangerous it was, and they wanted him nowhere near it because he wasn't going to add to the group. It was going to either he was going to get hurt or killed, or he was going to cause someone else to get hurt or killed. Maybe it's the same thing with Mrs. Hart. Once again, she's there. She is, she's there, but she's not magic. She's not a witch. So they're all going to have to rally up to keep protecting her to help her constantly along this road, which can cause someone else to get hurt or killed in that time. So maybe, unfortunately, it's a necessary sacrifice for the betterment of the group that she had to be the first one to go. I love her character. I love her, and I love the actress. So it's a shame. There's rumors based on the Witch's Road song that we may not be totally done with her yet. We may see more of her down the road again, but maybe it's the best thing for the group.
Yeah, I saw some people say like, oh, she's not really dead because they wouldn't kill off a big actress like her. And I'm like, I mean, she was barely in WandaVision. All right. Like they would absolutely like, whatever.
She was barely in this. She was barely in episode 2. She was in there like maybe a total of 5.
Right. So it's like, we don't, it is a little bit of foreshadowing too when she comes out of the kitchen and she's like, bury me in that kitchen. Right. And she does end up dying in it. Like that's some good foreshadowing with that.
Look, I think you could say that if like somehow Robert Downey Jr. shows up in the show. Like, yeah, they're probably not going to kill off a major character like that or major actor like that. In all fairness to her, like, this is no knock against her. She's not really that big of an actress.
Right. I mean, she is a name actress, but it's mostly from that
70s show and that 90s show. But
and
it's
Friends.
not like
she's Frank's wife in Friends. Phoebe.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
but like
his
she's
teacher
not,
that becomes.
but okay, so like if let's say one of the main cast from Friends showed up in this, yeah, either he's gonna die right away or they're not gonna kill him off. But it's not gonna be like a one episode thing and then like either he's gonna be Either he's going to be the victim, he's going to be the person killing the victim, or he's going to make it all the way through, right? But you know,
Yeah, she had
she's
like the
not
same
that
amount
huge
of
of a.
screen time in this as WandaVision, and it's like, yeah, she's cast in the role. They're bringing back people from WandaVision. They bring her back. She's a bigger name than the rest of those Westview, um, the Westview residents. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they can bring her in, and it'll kind of add more like credit to the show a bit of like, oh, we actually have like like a big sitcom actress in the show. But she's also not big enough. She's not like Aubrey Plaza, where you're like, yeah, they're not going. That's what it would be, right? It'd be like
If they would have killed
people are trying to act like
Aubrey
this
Plaza off
was
in episode one,
Aubrey
yeah,
Plaza in the first episode. Yeah, no, like we'll see her throughout the 9 episodes or whatever. But um, what I was going to say too with that is what was I going to say? So you had alluded to maybe seeing her again down the road, pun not intended. Um, yeah, I think maybe like with, I wouldn't say flashbacks, but I'd be like maybe like ghost type stuff. Not in a sense of
yeah,
like her being a real ghost, but maybe like even like ghosts haunting the witches of like the people that they've lost. So look, we know Agatha has said that she has walked this road before. And
yes,
I've started seeing speculation, Casey, that maybe she was lying. Or, yeah, do you think she's telling the truth that she actually completed her walk through this road before? We know that she needed a coven to walk the road. Um, her coven that she was originally, what the teen in the first episode asked about her coven. She says they're all kind of like, I don't know if she says they're all dead or all spread out. Like they're not, they don't want anything to do with her type of thing. So she has to get a new coven. That's what kind of kicks off the second episode, right? Is getting that new coven. But it's like, do we think she actually did this before? Is she in over her head? Or did she do this and she knows that all of these people are not going to make it out alive? And she's kind of structuring it in a way so she is the only one that would make it.
I think Agatha, as we have seen, is very manipulative. Um, she knows what she wants and how to get what she wants. Um, I think she has walked the road before. I think I, so. It doesn't necessarily say how the stories of Agatha Harkness have gone throughout the annals of time, um, especially through various witches. Obviously, that's going to be a very close knit community, right? So Teen manages to infiltrate this community somehow, whether he is a witch himself or whether he wants to be a witch, we don't know yet. He obviously is powerful in some way because he was able to break Wanda's spell over her. Um, but he what is it? He knows an egregiously amount. He knows an egregious amount of Wanda, right? Now, granted, now you have the internet, so it's not like back in the Salem days where everything would probably just have to be written down in a book, and then you might have to, maybe a few copies of that book would be made and spread about, but then you'd have to try and find whatever book to hear these tales of these witches that have done these various things or to get these spells. You can do everything online now, right? So witches have definitely made they've kept up with the times, and they're more technologically advanced than we probably give them credit for. The fact that he knows she walked the road, or he knows that she apparently has walked the witch's road before. I think I think for a witch to have walked this road, if this road has the infamy that it does, that yes, it will give you what you want at the very end, but it's treacherous, and they don't give a number, but let's say like 99% of people or 99% of the witches that start walking this road don't make it, right? And it's talked about in these hushed tones, and it's talked about it's not real, and it's like a wives' tale or all this other stuff. So I think for someone to have successfully made it through the road, yeah, the tails of that person are going to get out. I think if someone says they made it through but didn't, then there's a possibility that eventually that's going to be found out. Like I can't imagine that would. Uh, I think there are forces that would eventually put that out into the universe, as compared to allowing someone to lie for several hundred years to say they walked the witch's road and made it to the end. So I do think Agatha is manipulative enough, like you said, to maybe, especially if she's walked it before and knows what it will entail, not necessarily what every single one is going to be, right? But she knows the different kind of things you're going to encounter on the road. Because she was very specific. Remember, they need a potions person, they need this, they need that. So, yeah, she knows, maybe not exactly, but she has an idea of what's ahead of her. And yeah, maybe she's stacking the deck so that she is going to be the one to survive. And I think maybe at the end, um, wild speculation here again, maybe it'll come down to her and Teen, where she might have to sacrifice Teen to get what she really wants. Can she do it? Is it something she really wants to do? Especially once this may be where she finds out who and what Teen really is. Um,
Yeah.
there's also been whispers in the show of what's happened to her son, and in the first couple episodes they talk about, is it another child sacrifice? So maybe that gets in.
Mm-hmm.
As much as she didn't want him to go on the trip with her, she really didn't put up that much of a fight because maybe she knew she needed him for down the road.
She's a little protective of him. Do you think she thinks it's her kid, or is she just like maybe feeling like a motherly connection because of what happened to her son? You know what I'm saying?
I,
Like,
I think there is a part of her that may think that is her son, but a bigger part of me thinks it's, like I said, she knows she may need him in the very end to fulfill this journey, to get through the final trial, or to get what she wants out of this journey on the road. So she's probably going to do everything she can to protect him until she no longer needs him, and that may come, the last trial or towards the end of her walk on the road.
right, right. Like I said, I was spoiled on the Funko spoiler, so I do know who this is, so I'm not going to mention it here. But I have started seeing, people speculate on if she thinks it's her son, um, and if that's why she is starting to be a little bit more protective of him than everyone. Like she doesn't want him to drink the wine in this, right?
Okay,
Like,
let's get into that. So two
yeah,
things. Number one, were you able to figure out the riddle? Number two, we talked about the fact that he is 16, which I had my thoughts on, but I've kind of more accepted the fact that they needed him to be 16, especially with something he said in this episode. I was like, yeah, he kind of has to be 16 because it adds up with a period of time, and what something he said adds up. Yeah, okay, get it. You need to be 16. But um I mean, they're witches. Did you think it was weird that yes, he's underage, but they're on this magical journey where people might die? They're not gonna let they're not gonna let him have a glass of wine on this road.
um, yeah, I think that was an excuse on why he shouldn't drink. I do think the especially on Agatha's side of it, I do think it was more of a protecting him. Like we're not going to, because it kind of kicks off this whole riddle then, right? Of ultimately what ends up killing Mrs. Hart is because she does drink this and they didn't get it
Get her the
to her
antidote
in
time.
time. And because she drank it first, she was the one in more dire need of it. Like she started like passing out, like and she
Yeah.
was like completely out of commission. It also could be because she's a normal human and not a witch too, I guess. But um yeah, no, I do think it's funny because it does seem very Disney as well, right? Like we can't have the 16-year-old drink, right? So we have
You know
to
what? I hadn't
not
thought of
have
that,
him drink the wine.
but there could have been. there could have been maybe television reasons behind that too. Of if this character, I don't know necessarily how that works. I mean, I know in a lot of other shows, they'll okay. Prime example, that '70s show, right? If you've ever seen it, it's it's set obviously during the late '70s, right? And they're teenagers, and we know what they were. We know what the circle. We know what they were doing in this circle, right? It's only ever referred to as a circle. You see, you know what they're doing, right? The room is a little hazy, and some of the conversations are kind of weird, and there's some giggle fits and various things. You know what they're doing in there, but I don't know if it was because they couldn't show it on television, especially broadcast television, as compared to if this was cable, right? Or if they just didn't want to face the wrath of like parent councils and all this other stuff of them showing like drug use with teenagers. So they made a conscious decision to just hint at it. And unless you're, I don't want to say this, but unless you're totally dumb, you'll get what they're doing, right? Unless you're totally naive, you'll get what they're doing in the circle and go on from there. Now, how Kitty and Red didn't know what was going on in the circle until the last episode is totally beyond me. That's a whole nother topic of discussion. So yeah, I don't know if maybe there was television reasons or if there were other reasons or a combination of both. But that didn't hit me till now. Like maybe they just couldn't show this 16-year-old drinking without facing wrath of something. You never know.
Yeah, I think Disney wouldn't want to show that. Like, I don't think they really show it in any of their stuff. So, um, yeah, I think it was more of that, and then also like trying to fit it into the narrative a bit of like, okay, how do we like not have this 16-year-old drink it? Well, we have Mrs. Hart jump the gun on it. There's only a few glasses of it, right? And
And then later they
uh,
needed someone who was untainted or whatever.
yes, exactly. Yep. So it all worked out. But yeah, I do wonder what his role will be as we get through more of these trials. Like, do you think each trial is going to be a riddle like this that makes them have like 30 minutes to solve it, and it's going to kind of be the structure of these episodes as we go?
I wouldn't mind that. Like
Yeah, that's kind of what I think.
I wasn't able to get the riddle. I had no thought of
Yeah,
why.
no, me neither.
Um, but I wouldn't mind something like that where maybe as they're going down the road, it's a different. I don't want to say house that they stop in, or castle or different place they stop in, and then they have to figure their way out of it. You know, and the riddle and what they have to do helps. So yeah,
Yeah, because I think like the trailer has shown like different costumes for all of these people. So I
yeah.
do think like they'll be kind of like different, either like I've seen some people speculate decades because of the way that people are wearing stuff. So like if there's like a 70s one, an 80s one, stuff like that. This would have been probably like the 2010s, right? Or the 2000s, right? This
This
felt
would have been a
very
more
like,
modern,
yeah.
maybe kind of going in reverse from WandaVision. This would have been your more modern episode
Yeah.
first
And
as
that's what I
compared
was
to
wondering. Like, when we had saw trailers before, I was kind of wondering, like, are they doing the WandaVision thing again? But if they're doing it with this structure, and when the first episode opened up and we're doing Agnes of Westview, and I'm like, oh, okay, they're kind of pulling the same strings. I like the way it's going more if it's this way. If it's like a different house with different set decorations and different costumes for the cast and a different riddle each time, I find that more enthralling than like trying to do WandaVision again. So I do
and
like that this might be the way that they're going.
and with this you have the possibility of not just you might they might go different centuries, so not necessarily different decades, like
True.
witches go back
Yeah, witches have been around a while. Yeah.
hundreds of years, right? So you could have something where they find themselves in like a Salem situation, a medieval English type situation, something like that, where we're not just going back to when did WandaVision start, like the 50s or 60s or something like that, time
50s.
period,
Yeah, it was very like
Brady Bunch
Dick
type,
Van Dyke
yeah.
start type. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we can go back to the 16, 1700s. So, we could, we might find ourselves in a situation where maybe we go to the 70s, but then next thing we know, we're back in the 1870s, and the Wild West times or something like that. And then, we're back in Salem in the 1600s. So,
Yeah, we had a witches have been around for a while, right? Like you said, centuries. I was trying to pull up like a Monty Python quote that's not loading on my screen right now. But anyway, because you could go all the way back to then. Um, but they kind of do more of a. I think if they were to do that, the furthest back they'd go is probably Salem, and maybe that's when we get answers on Agatha's side. What happened to Nicholas Scratch, who we find out her son, right? They finally dropped the word, Casey, an agent of Mephisto. This is a name that people were waiting for all WandaVision 3 years ago, and it finally gets name dropped.
so yeah, this is the first time they mentioned his name. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the first time he has been brought up in one of these shows. He was brought up by Madison in She-Hulk, where I guess apparently she was having drinks with Mephisto at some point, and in one of the end credits or something, you see like a drawing or something of like Madison and what apparently was Mephisto hanging out. Like, but this is the first time like he's actually been mentioned by name, as far as I know. I haven't seen all of the Disney Plus series, but I think this is the first time he's actually been mentioned by name in any of them. Where like
Yeah, I think
we,
so. I
we
think
have
so.
we have confirmation this is real. And see, this goes back to my conversation from last week of like, this is what bothers me most about this, because Mephisto is he the devil? Is he a demon? What is he actually?
I'll bring up the official synopsis of Mephisto here. So he first appeared in Silver Surfer #3, which was December 1968. It was created by Stan
Jesus.
Lee and John Buscema, and based on Mephistopheles, right? A demon
Mr.
character.
Mephistopheles?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, based on a demon character from the Faust legend, who has sometimes been referred to as Mephisto. Um, so he is uh what is mostly seen as like he is a demon. That is his species. If we're looking at demon, most people have kind of equated him to Marvel's devil, type of thing.
Okay, so
Um, yeah,
uh, one, the only reason I know the name Mephistopheles is a Saturday Night Live skit where John Lovitz plays the devil, Phil Hartman plays Judge Wapner in The People's Court, and there was a lady who took the devil to court because this ties in very well. She made a Faustian bargain with the devil where make a deal with the devil and there's unintended consequences. So in that skit, uh, she was a hairdresser and she wanted to be the best hairdresser there was. He granted that wish. The problem was she did hair so well they never ever needed to go back. Right? So this is kind of
mm-hmm.
like your Twilight Zone, your ironic things of how they always tell you, be careful what you wish for and so on and stuff like that. So that is the only reason why I know the name Mephistopheles. And now that I think about it and you bring it up, yeah, that probably makes sense. That's probably where Mephisto did come from. That makes the most sense.
And Mephisto has a huge comic storyline recently in the 2000s called One More Day, which was the basis of Spider-Man No Way Home. Um, but instead of like Peter going to Doctor Strange to get things fixed for his timeline, he makes a deal with Mephisto in the comics to heal Aunt May, and in an exchange, Peter and Mary Jane end up never becoming married, all that kind of stuff. So it became like it's a storyline everybody hates, but they actually took the basis of it and made a really good movie by just changing a few things, but the end result's the same, right? Like he doesn't like they don't MJ doesn't remember him type of thing. Like that type of stuff is a very similar aspect of
Why
it.
would
But
you? Why would you go to the devil for that? These people not
well, you
heard
see,
about Faustian bargains.
Marvel did not want Peter to be married anymore, and that was their way of undoing it. Yeah, I'm not sure why Peter sought it. I guess because Aunt May was dying or dead, and they had to reverse it. So,
Well, okay,
um,
silly thought. Instead of going to the devil, right, or a demon,
mhm.
wouldn't you maybe try and find Thor and see if one of these gods might be able to help you out?
You would think. You would think.
But I don't know. See, this brings my fears even more forward from last week of like now there's demons and devils out here, and who knows what kind of chaos they're having. Like horrible. Um, but if you get a chance to check out that Saturday Night Live skit with the People's Court, it is awesome. We also just had
I'll
Phil
look into it.
Hartman's. We also just had Phil Hartman's birthday this last week as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
he would have been, I think, in his 70s right now. So someone we definitely lost before we should have. So,
And for films for the very first time, no spoilers, but spoilers, I'm going to pick one of his last movies when it comes to Christmas time,
yeah,
because he's
yeah.
in Jingle All the Way with Schwarzenegger. So he's great in that. He's great in that too.
You might remember him from such films as
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the flashbacks, the visions that these characters have and what they might mean. So let's start with Agatha.
the horror elements are starting to come out now, which is good. This is they
Hmm.
said this was supposed to be like the scariest show so far, and while I wasn't scared, I like the horror elements that they're starting to peer out. Which I saw on Twitter. I saw one of the Salem Seven, or who is a person who is one of the Salem Seven, and I saw why she was picked to be one of the Salem Seven. And if I saw this with no context, like in real life, it would scare the ever loving shit out of me. Like, there's no other way for me to put that. Like, if I
Is it
just
like
saw the,
exorcist type things where she can like bend herself certain ways or
yeah,
what?
yeah. So if
That's
I'm
what I
like
thought.
walking
Yeah.
down the road or something and I see something like this at night or whatever, or like if I'm Herb, right, and I'm in this neighborhood just chilling and I see something like this, I'm moving out of like, that's it. I'm done with Western. I got to get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. But let's start with Agatha. Uh, Jen had warned the teen not to trust her because she had traded her child for the Darkhold.
The
And
rumor
in
was, it
this,
wasn't confirmed, but
the
the rumor
rumor,
was,
yes,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
They say, you know
And
how they
in
are.
in her vision, right? She hears the baby crying, goes to the crib, pulls it back, and it's the Darkhold sitting in there. We're definitely going to get more on this, but I wouldn't be shocked to find out that she actually never willingly traded her child. That she made some sort of deal that then ended up um, becoming kind of like you said with the Faustian stuff, right? Like maybe the deal wasn't clear to her, and it becomes a twisted way. I wouldn't be shocked to find out that maybe her son's soul is in that rabbit Nicholas Scratch. I don't think she named her son. I don't think she named the rabbit after her son, right? I do think maybe her son is in this rabbit that she's
Because
been keeping as a pet.
I was gonna say she even had that rabbit in WandaVision, didn't she? She was holding it
Yes.
when
Yep.
she finally revealed herself to Wanda
Yep.
in one of those last episodes of WandaVision. So
Yeah, so that would be my theory on Agatha, is that we're gonna definitely, like, they're painting her out to be somebody that's only out for herself and will even give up her own child. But I think we'll find out that that was all like a misunderstanding, and she is actually maybe going the road not just to get her power back, but maybe to
get her son
get her
back.
son back. Yeah,
I could buy that. Um,
or getting her power back so she can get her son back. Like maybe that's the motivation. I need my power back so I can face off against Mephisto to get my child back. Type, it could be
because
something along those lines.
wasn't she trying to get Wanda's powers from WandaVision?
Yes. Yep.
And didn't they
Yeah,
mention? Didn't they
she can only
mention?
get power if the person attacks her.
And didn't they mention in this series so far earlier? Okay. No, no, it's not okay. I didn't tell you anything. Um, didn't they mention in earlier in the series about how she can get someone else's powers if she kills them or something like that?
If they
Or
attack her, she can take their power. Yeah.
and
So that was her way of trying to tell people, like, that were worried about that. Don't attack me then, because then I can't actually take your power. But if you start attacking me, it lets me take your power.
yeah,
Check
because
and
even
balance there.
because she was trying to trick them before they went down the road before the door appeared. Uh,
Yeah.
and then the door appeared and that didn't happen. So yeah, maybe she needs this power because maybe she wants to take on Mephisto or something like that. But the only way to do it is she has to gather enough power from uh, various other witches, and maybe she kind of like in Skyrim or a lot of these other RPGs. Maybe what's it called? We just got to build up and build up over and over time. Um,
Oh, like level grinding.
yeah, maybe she's grinding. Maybe she's got to go grind for a
I
while.
gotta go through the road a few times,
Yeah,
get her levels up.
yeah. Right now Mephisto's like a level 99. She's only on 35, so she's got to keep doing
She's like, I
this
got to
until
run
she.
through the road a few times. Each time I run through the road, I get like 3 levels. So if I
Yeah,
keep going through, it takes me this many times. Yeah, I've done that before on stuff. Um, okay, let's talk about Jen. Right, Jen. Uh, it sees a doctor, a creepy doctor, forcing her underwater. Um,
I didn't get the
what
doctor.
anything in there?
I didn't get the doctor unless maybe that was had something to do with her life as this shady women's health saleswoman thing.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
wondering if it's from before that. Like, I'm wondering if it's like maybe the doctor experimented on her or something, and then she finally maybe that helped awaken her power, or she got power and she was able to finally break out from that. Like, that's the only thing I could guess about that.
this could tie into what I was talking about last episode, where I talked about how they didn't burn witches in Salem. A lot of times they would drown them, so they had a few different
Yeah.
methods of either tying stuff to them, throwing them in a river or lake. If they survived, they were obviously a witch, and they would find another way to kill them. If they didn't survive, my bad, sorry about that. Um, and or they would dunk them, like how she was being dunked into the sink. That was another. They would tie them up and then dunk them and hold them underwater. Once again, if you survived, you're obviously a witch because no human could survive that. If you didn't, well, we made a mistake. We'll learn from that and try and move on and be better people for it. So maybe maybe there was something going on where uh, when she did have her powers, all these things she was making, she was found out by this doctor, and maybe he was trying to he came to the realization the only way this would work was she was a witch, and something happened from there. I don't know.
Yeah. Alice sees her missing mother about to commit suicide. So a little
Oh, I saw. Well,
dark kind
I
of
didn't
stuff
see the
there.
suicide part coming, but I saw after the because I think she was like the second or third one to have the visions there, and as soon because they were her and team ran off trying to find something, and then I was like, oh, she's gonna see her mom. I was like afterwards, like I said, she was second or third one after everyone else had these hallucinations,
Yeah.
and then I remembered they said one of the side effects from this poison that they had was hallucinations. And as she walked by, I was like, oh, she's about to see her mom. Because I remember they made such a big deal about when they were trying to get her to go on this road with them, of trying to figure out what happened to her mom. Or there was something in there where they were trying
Yeah.
to. they were trying to use that for, and I was like, oh, that's going to be her mom in there. Sure enough, it was.
And then we get Lilia, right? Sees her younger self, and it seems to be from like the Renaissance era, is what Wikipedia says here. She does have like a different type of clothing style, so it could be that she is, dating back to that era. Witches are very old. Um, I'm not sure what to get much from this one, but look, I think we'll get pieces of this stuff for each character until they die, until each one dies. And then maybe we'll kind of get that full story that we can put the pieces together. So let's say, look, the reason why Mrs. Hart didn't have a very deep vision is because they knew they were killing her off at the end of this episode. So these other ones we're getting little seeds of, I think. And then maybe next week we'll get a finishing piece on what one of these means, and then that person dies. If they, I don't know. Do you think they'll have hallucinations each time, or maybe we just get like background from them talking to each other, working through the vision? I don't know.
I don't know about hallucinations, but I think maybe each of these riddles and whatever they have to go through will tie into each of their individual stories somehow. Whether it's a hallucination, whether it's, I don't know. I can't figure out another way for that to happen without it being a hallucination. But I think, I think we'll get more each of these trials that they'll have to deal with, to get more on each of their backstories, on either how they lost their powers, or what they're most fearful of, or something that's been bugging them or chasing them for however long, and so on and so forth.
Right. But that was all of the hallucinations. Obviously, Teen doesn't get one because he did not drink the wine. So we don't know what he would see. I've also seen some speculation on who this Teen is, in the sense of, look, there was, if he is a Maximoff, right? We've talked about last week. How does he become real, right? That they were figments of Wanda's thing. And then, like, in the first episode, they talk about a car crash that ended up killing a teenager or something. So some people think maybe reincarnated through the body of the dead teen is how that would work. I don't know. I know in the comics, we talked about it last week, that they were reincarnated through different people's bodies that were then raised by different parents, but were still spiritually Billy and Tommy Maximoff. So there's many ways that this can go. But that's just a prevalent theory I see, and I wanted to acknowledge it, that I didn't really hear that in that first episode, but I'll have to go back and listen again. But people keep bringing up this car crash that they just mentioned briefly. I think it was when she's having her Agnes of Westview stuff, and they talk about another car crash that had some couple of teens dead or something. Maybe that becomes Billy and Tommy. I don't know.
Let's talk about the fact that Teen can't reveal himself to anybody.
Yes, it's not just Agatha. This sigil prevents any witch from learning his identity.
Yeah, that was I did not see that coming. Um I did feel at some point that these other women would be like, okay, who are you and what is your deal? Right? Like, what is going on here? Like, eventually they're going to want answers, right? And they tried to get those answers pretty early in this thing. And that's when they're like, wait a minute, do that again? And he couldn't reveal it. And they're like, oh, someone put a sigil on this boy. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it's not just Agatha that doesn't know it. And they bring up the fact that, yeah, he's hiding something, or someone is trying to hide something.
Yeah, that's the That's the interesting part is who put the sigil on him? Was it him himself and he doesn't remember it? Is it, let's say, if he, if the theories are right and he's a Maximoff, did Wanda somehow put it on when she put a curse on Westview and Agatha? Or is it Agatha who did it and doesn't remember? Who did it and why is going to be, I think, something when we figure out who this is, it's going to play into the story and they're going to have to tell us who and why did they do this.
Silly
Was it
question.
Aubrey Plaza's character that
Yeah.
did,
Was it
who did
Rio?
this?
Could it have been Mephisto? And do you think there's a possibility we may actually see Mephisto in this series?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say
Since
no.
he's actually been mentioned now, like
Right. I don't know. I'm gonna still say no. I think it's gonna mostly focus on the characters that we already have introduced, and it'll play out between all of these characters. I could be wrong. Anything else about the episode? Was there anything we missed?
so I'm gonna have to look at the lyrics and listen to the song again, because apparently I saw something where they brought up that there's hints in this song about what's going to happen.
Let's take a look now. Let me see if I can pull up the lyrics. This is from genius.com. I'm not going to sing it. I'm going to read it, okay? So let's see if we can put together anything that's already happened and what might happen. Okay. Verse 1. Marching ever forward, neath the wooded shrine, I stray not from the path, I hold death's hand in mine. Primal night giveth sight, familiar by thy side. If sun be gone, we carry on, spirit as our guide.
Okay,
So that's the first verse.
so we do get, obviously, beneath the wooden door there that appears, right? We also get where Mrs. Hart wanders off, which
Yes, yep.
maybe I'm just too big of a horror movie fan, but why would you wander off by yourself into a place like that where you don't know what's going on, right? But she does, and they almost lose Mrs. Hart earlier in the episode. And then Wanda has to bring up, she's like, I can't believe I have to say this, but don't, stay on the path. So that is, so far, yeah.
Yeah, so I found a different one where verse 1 is different because this is the chant version. And the other verse 1, I guess, was like the released version with Catherine Hahn by herself. I don't know. Okay. So let's take a look at, let me see. Let me see if this is just verse 1 and verse 2 flipped around. Okay, no. So we have two different songs to work through here. Okay, so verse 2, because then like the chorus is just down the road. Okay.
Well, wait, let's go back to this familiar. Okay, first of all, what in the blue hell is a familiar?
Have you watched the What We Do in the Shadows?
No.
It's good, but it also will explain this. Vampires have familiars as well. So like, they're like normal people for like in the vampire case in What We Do in the Shadows, their familiar is just a normal guy who goes out and gets them stuff like groceries or does the billing and all this kind of stuff. He does the normal stuff for them and will maybe help them find people to suck the blood of type of like that's what their job is, kind of like an assistant type thing. So when Wanda, Agatha has the whole like what the that the teen is her familiar, right? That's what she's kind of like. He's kind of like the
A hired goon or a
normal guy.
henchman then?
Yeah, but also I think what she's alluding to is that he's normal. He's not a witch, but we know that he is very obsessed with witches and knows that stuff. And
But here's the thing: if he broke Wanda's spell, he can't be normal. Like me and you couldn't go find a book, figure out a couple things, do some sort of chant, and break the Scarlet Witch's spell. Like, because if I did, I'm telling you right now, I would feel like I'm the most powerful being in the world, and someone would end up killing me because that
No,
shit would
I know.
go to my head pretty quick. Like that would
I
go to
think
my
she
head pretty
knows
quick.
that. I don't think she's telling everybody else.
Okay.
I don't think she wants everybody else to know. But here's what the official thing is. Familiars are from European folklore in the medieval and early modern periods. It just means close friend or companion. Um, According to like what it means for witches, they were often thought to be malevolent. And then when working for cunning folk, they would be considered benevolent. Uh, Sometimes categorized as demons or fairies, but it all depends. Mostly just like think of them as being like assistants to the witch. So there you go. Familiar by thy side, of course. She has a familiar by her side.
That would be Teen. Okay.
That'd be Teen. Verse 2: The road is wild and wicked, winding through the wood, where all that's wrong is right, and all that's bad is good. Through many miles of tricks and trials, the episode title, will wander high and low, tame your fears, a door appears, the time has come to go. So that's just kind of like saying we'll have trials and tricks. So next episode may not be a trial, might be a trick, right? There's different things there. Now for the chant version, here's this. It says, "Seekest thou the road." That's what the first or second episode. "To all that's foul and fair, gather sisters fire, water, earth, and air. Darkest hour, wake thy power, earthly and divine. Burn and brew with coven true, and glory shall be thine." Verse 2 of that is, "Marching ever forward near the wood of shrines," all that stuff that we've already talked about. Verse 3 is the road is wild and wicked. Okay, so that's what it is. It's an added verse on the chant version that there's, chanting, "Seekest thou the road to all that's foul and fair." Okay, so that's the new verse that we haven't talked about yet. But everything else is the same.
I got nothing. I can't figure out where this goes from here.
Yeah. But just interesting to know, we now know what it says. That's the first time I've revisited it. And maybe next episode, some of that stuff will. I have the episode title for next week, so let's maybe speculate off of that. If I can't reach you, let my song teach you. Now, somebody says that this is lyrics from the ballad, but from a different version of the ballad that we haven't heard yet. So they could be playing around with that too. But if I can't reach you, let my song teach you. So maybe we get some sort of musical component this
I
episode or
think I've seen
something.
screenshots and stuff, so yeah, I won't spoil what I've seen, but there are like screenshots and various things out there. So
Yes, of them in like different gear. Yeah. Okay. So we won't go too much in that, but it does seem like the structure of the show will be the house redecorated, different costumes. It's a good way to keep costs down, but also keep it changing, and it fits the story of the road changing all the time. So I think that's really cool.
when do you think we'll see the Salem 7 again?
It's a good question.
I'm kind of surprised we
I
didn't see
kind of
him in this one, but I'm kind of glad we didn't because I don't want to see him like every episode, getting closer
I
and
think we're
closer.
going to get a couple episodes of trials, and then we'll probably have like we'll be at episode 4 next week out of 9. So maybe by episode 5 we kind of get like, oh, the Salem 7 are following them through the road,
Yeah, they're
and
still
then that
back
kind
there.
of
Don't
sets
forget
up
about that.
yeah, and that kind of sets up maybe another episode where maybe they don't recognize it still, and then like the last 3 episodes are them dealing with that, and I don't know. Like 9 episode structures are always interesting to me. WandaVision had a totally different structure, obviously. Like episode 8 was the one where it shows why it is structured the way it was, with like her growing up watching sitcoms, and we got to see flashbacks and all of that. I don't think this one will be set up the same, though. We could have like episode 8 be flashbacks of all these characters, and we get those answers from those hallucinations. Um, I don't know. I don't know how it's structured. I would say maybe we get like this episode without Salem 7, and then maybe episode 5, there's some sort of tease that they're still around causing issues. Because then we'll be more than halfway. That's what's weird about 9, right? You get like 4, you're still not halfway. Episode 5, you are more than halfway.
And
Like
especially when you got double episodes at the premiere and end the
end
season.
finale, yeah.
So you end up with, I mean, look, I'm not knocking it because it's a great way to start and a great way to end, but then it does
Yeah, we'll
shrink
be
down
done in a
that
month.
time. It shrinks down that time in the middle really quick.
Yeah, because we'll be done pretty much a month from today, I think.
Yeah, because the 30th, I
October
think. I think the 30th
29th.
is the
Yeah,
finale.
30th.
The
Yep.
final 2 episodes.
Yep.
So
It's only 4 weeks left. Kind of wild.
yeah, 5,
All
6,
right.
7, and then 8 and 9 are the last week. Jesus.
Yep. All right. Anything left before we head out? I think we dissected enough here.
How are you feeling about the series so far?
I'm enjoying. I think it's been getting better each episode. This is my favorite of the 3 so far. You know, I wouldn't say I was kind of down on it to begin with. I was kind of, I
You
had so many
wanted it
other
to move a
things
little
going on.
quicker. And you wanted it to move a little
Yeah, that
quicker to get
first
into the
one.
story.
And you know what? I think I was maybe a little too harsh on it because it does only take up less than half of that first episode. But I was really worried we were going down just WandaVision 2.0, and I love WandaVision, but I was like, I don't want to just see WandaVision again with the TV show stuff. But I feel better after this episode of like, okay, we're kind of getting some of that same WandaVision stuff with like different periods and different styles, but it's through a totally different lens. It's no longer like a curse. It's them having an objective of going down this road, and now we know there's trials, and we're probably going to lose one of these people each week. That then we have a time frame we're reaching to, like that we're aiming for, and it feels like we're starting to make progress. So I think it's been getting better each episode. Um, so for me, I'm starting to really come around to it. Uh, I Yeah, that's where I stand on it so far. How about you?
It's definitely a top 3 show for me. Like I said, WandaVision and She-Hulk, and then right now this, but we're only 3 episodes in, so it could definitely, I guess there's a possibility there could be some things that happen that maybe kind of make it slide down a little bit, but I could only honestly see it going up from here. We've only seen Rio for the first couple episodes. And she was, Aubrey Plaza was marketed as such a big, huge part of this series. So we still have to have her reemerge later in this series.
I think next week she'll take the place of Sharon as on the road as part of the coven, and I think that she'll be heavily featured the rest of the way. I think she would be not one of the ones killed off right away. I think we'll lose maybe like, I don't know. Jen is a pretty big Marvel character, not big, but like she is an actual named Marvel character. So I'm kind of thinking maybe we'll lose like Lilia and Alice before we would lose Jen, but I don't think we'll lose Rio before the end either. So I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know of the actress, but was it Patty Lupone?
Lapone, yeah.
Lupone. She seems to be a much bigger actress than the other 2. Who are the other witches?
I could see that as being a reason she dies early too. Just like, hey, I don't
Okay,
want to
that's
do
fair.
this for like I can film for like 3 weeks or less than three
Yeah.
weeks and be done.
I mean, like I said, I don't know what she's done. I may have seen her in other stuff, but maybe just don't recognize her.
I've heard
Um,
the name. I don't know if I actually know
I've
who
never
she
even
is
really
either.
heard the name, but people really seem to be people seem to really enjoy that actress from what I've seen, and her name being attached to it, and the fact she's one of the, plus she's the oldest. It seems like she's the oldest witch
Mm-hmm.
in this cast of witches. So she seems like she
Do
would
you
have
watch
much
American
more.
Horror Story?
I've seen some
She's
of
in
it.
that.
I haven't seen all of it, but that's one of those because they're on like season 12 or something. It's um season 1 was great. I loved it. I just never got around to moving on season 2. And then, like I said, each season is a whole different story. So,
Let's see. She was in a lot of like one episode guest stars on stuff. So I think her heyday was way more in the 90s and 80s. And then after that, she's been in like guest star roles, one episode, a thing. But none of these are like big movies I'm seeing her in. It looks like her first role was in 76. And then she was in like just movies all the way up until like the early 2000s and then like TV shows.
but with the age of her witch, it looks like she might have much more of a story to tell as well.
Yeah.
Um, so that might be a little more interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, if anybody has theories on Petty LuPone's character, go ahead and send them to our social medias, which are in the links below. I don't have all these handles are all different because of the what each one was available or whatever at the time that I made the podcast. But on Twitter at TO Infinity Saga is where you can reach us there, or you can email us Marvel Plus Recaps at gmail.com for long form feedback. Spotify now allows comments. You can also, if you're listening on Spotify, just send us a comment, or if you're on YouTube, you can comment below as after you like and subscribe. But we will be catching you next week when we talk Agatha All Along episode 4. Until then, have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time.